we'll cut this.
Welcome
to...
I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm just mimicking what you're doing.
You gotta... One of the things I read was like, you gotta stand on your heels and go...
Rural.
I don't know. I don't know what it's meant to do. I just read it. Oh, saw it somewhere.
All right. Time to buckle up for another Altacast numéro 12. That's number 12 for you English speakers out there. So, I'm gonna close my window so that you don't hear that. Et voilà. Some peace and quiet. Okay. So, what are we talking about today, Joel?
We're talking about movement in general. The idea of get moving. We thought, everyone's been stuck in their houses. This is not at all how this was chosen. But everyone's been stuck in their houses, so it's good to get out there and move around a little bit. And we're going to talk about how movement might be happening in the future. Ironically, a lot of the movement we're going to be talking about is not physical exercise. So
yes, yep. So we're talking about how you navigate the world of a Township Tale, both across long distances as well as short, immediate things, and how being an open world game, how you're going to be able to travel this huge landscape, without having to necessarily walk everywhere. So we've got a lot of ideas about this, and it's going to define a lot of how you're going to be traveling through the world.
Why am I hearing you twice? I'm hearing an echo of you. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm hearing you. I hear myself on your speakers as well sometimes.
What? It's coming out of my earphones.
Hello?
What?
Hello? What? I think I'm hearing myself from Timo. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, dude.
Mute your flipping mic, Timo, if you're gonna eat food, bro. Come on, man.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, that's better.
Okay,
yeah.
All good now. Okay, all good. Okay.
Yeah, traveling from...
Anyway, we're going to talk about movement. But first of all, phase number 1 of every Altacast, what's people been working on?
Ah, yes. I forgot about that. Yep, so...
Someone looks up to you when they copy your body actions. That's something I read somewhere else as well. Yeah. So,
I think...
When I do things... And Boramy does it straight after.
I'm doing it first, but the video delay is just displaying.
Oh. Okay. So what is? Let's start with what's Timo been working on.
Timo.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't actually. There's no way to find out as well, unfortunately.
No one ever knows. I think he's been doing some tax stuff, but like.
Oh, Timo.
That seems. I was saying Timo.
Oh, Timo. Yeah.
I don't like.
Yeah, Timo's doing a bit of accounting stuff, which is super fun. And yes, that's about it. Timo's doing.
Okay.
What's Timo doing?
He's been eating apples recently.
Oh yeah.
Been doing some painting.
Yeah.
But we've got a new intern. I'm not sure if we've talked about our new intern, but we've got a new programming intern. He's kind of Timo's intern. His name's Stefan. He's been kind of learning about our different systems, like our APIs. And right now he's been sort of revamping the dashboard a little bit. And hopefully he'll be adding in some nicer controls in there for stuff like moderators and the like. Yeah. So I don't know what Timo specifically has been working on, but that's what Stefan's been working on.
Yeah, so Timo's pretty much been teaching stiffen the ropes on that side of things. And also last update, which was update 54, I believe, Timo was working on some of the server discovery changes and implementing those. We didn't really give any spoilers about it because it was kind of just about server discovery, but we did talk about it actually in the previous Altacast. So if you're curious about what those changes were, where they come from, you can check out Altacast number 11. So Victor and Serena are still doing a lot of optimizations. There's some ways in which we're kind of putting LODs together that is being changed. So hopefully we're going to see some of those come through. But again, they're kind of churning through the really hard, like manual labor type of optimization. So expect very incremental wins for the most part until we have, until we notice and measure some big stuff. So yeah, that's what Serena and Victor are currently doing.
And we'll let you know. It'll be in the patch notes when their optimizations come out. Who's next?
Well, we have Eric next, so.
Okay, sure. Eric's been working on some sort of unique experience, sort of pre-made experiences. He posted a very big spoiler, which I did not expect to be posted in supporter spoilers the other day. I'm not going to spoil too much of it on the stream here, but or video.
I think he has shown it off to. I think he did a dev live stream at some point about it.
He's done some. Yeah. But he's been working on a kind of unique encounter, and part of that's going to be unlocking special features for the town. So the idea that, one of the things we're talking about is smelter upgrades. So it could be that it could be that by completing this sort of challenge or encounter he's working on, you'll be able to upgrade your smelter. That's all I want to say. I'm not sure.
No, that's fair enough. And I was testing that with him earlier today, and it's pretty promising stuff. It's looking good.
I watched these two get killed multiple times.
So there's still a fair amount of work to be done on that side of things because it's like we haven't started doing official art for it, but it's coming along nicely. Speaking of art, Sebastian and Tiana are continuing to do cosmetics. I think there's like confidence levels are boosting. I can feel it. So we're gonna see some interesting stuff coming out from them.
Got some really cool cosmetics coming. I'm pretty pumped. I like Sebastian's been working on a hat. Tiana's been working on an outfit, and both of them look fantastic. And I think a lot of people have been asking for an outfit like the one Tiana's working on, and I think the hat that Sebastian's working on is going to be a favorite. Definitely, I'm gonna be showing it off in our dev play sessions.
Yep.
As next play session we do, I hope it's in the game by then. I'll definitely be wearing it. So good stuff.
Okay, cool. And that brings them to you and me, Joel.
So what have you been doing? Because we haven't really been working together.
So Joel and I have kind of like we're branching out a little bit between what I'm continuing on some of the content side of things for the forest, primarily to do with hazards, things that will kind of make you struggle on your way through that are not necessarily straight up enemies. And so I'm kind of going through testing that and making them fit with the world. And so I'm kind of doing some new Boramy stuff at the moment, which gives the forest an even newer feel to what me and Joel have been used to seeing for the last couple of weeks.
Cool.
So there's that, and on the like a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about some of the enemies and creatures coming into the forest. And so I'm doing a bit of prototyping in that realm of things, just working on stuff. And the Babu's got a lot of work done on it. You've probably seen it if you're a supporter, but we've there's still a bit more to go in terms of the polish side of things that we've kind of haven't done yet. So I'm kind of split into a couple of different things at this point.
Yeah, I've been working on. Today I was fixing a couple bugs that Boramy had been waiting on me to fix. So I've done them. But aside from that, I've been doing some investigations into water stuff in the forest. So some of you might remember, in fact, ages ago, I posted, in fact, I think it was in our What's Coming in 2020 blog post.
It was in the blog.
Maybe?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. We posted a screenshot of the forest back before Boramy started working on it. So all the bushes were the same and all the trees were the same. But in that picture, there was a little stream running through it with a bridge over the stream. But the first thing I did in 2020 when I started working on the forest was I removed the river from the thing. I didn't remove the code, I just removed the river because it made working on other things just a little bit more tedious. So it let Boramy focus on just making the environment without having to worry about how everything interacts with the river. I've now switched that back on, and I looked at it, and when I was first working on the forest, it was quite a generally flat landscape, and Boramy was going, nah, I want this to be much more outrageous heights. And my river generation algorithm didn't take height of the terrain into account whatsoever. So, I mean, it didn't in terms of where the water flowed. And when it was reasonably flat ground, that wasn't a big deal. But once I looked at it with all these mountains, I was like, there's no way a river would ever flow that way when it's right next to a cliff. It's going to come off the cliff, and these two streams would join together because that's downhill from each other. But that's not how the algorithm works. So I rewrote the algorithm earlier this week. I've mainly been doing a lot of this work on streams. So this Altacast is going to come out probably after I stop streaming about the river, but there's my advertisement pitch. But now we've got streams. Now we've got rivers streams coming that join together and they go to places. And I started working on stuff like lake generation as well. So I've been testing out just how does water fit into the forest as it stands now, and working on some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy with the results so far, but they're very early stages still. So it's got a way to go. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think that wraps up everyone, right?
Yes, it does.
Yep.
It does. It
Yeah,
does
it does.
indeed.
Yeah, we kind of generalized Free and Victor together. Yep, that's everyone. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's what we're up to. Work on the forest continues. Where there's still a lot of work left to be done, and so we're going to be hard at it to try and keep up momentum and get through some of the stuff we want to get done, which we're not going to reveal because if we get everything that we want done, it's going to be a pretty epic forest.
Yeah, we've got a list.
Yeah, we've got a list. And that's kind of what I'm churning through. But all right, so next up, let's talk about how moving around the world works. With the forest being added, at some point, the landscape of a township is going to grow a bunch. And even then, the forest doesn't cover the entire terrain. So, how is someone going to make repeat trips up to the mountains beyond it, as the game grows and things like that? That's a bit of a question that we've seen, and it's a common thing with these open world games that you have to have the means to travel this place in a variety of ways.
So right now we have I keep hearing myself, and I feel like in the recording I'm going to be echoing a bit, but anyway. Right now we have smooth locomotion, and we have teleporting. For all intents and purposes, that's just standard movement across the world. you might argue one is slightly faster or slower than the other, but if you want to go from the end of the maze all the way to the end of the fields, they're both your standard movement. Neither is significantly faster than the other. Then we have the teleport potion, which means that you can teleport to spawn, and it only teleports you to spawn. There's no way you can use it to teleport to the fields or teleport to a custom location. And that's it, I think, actually. That's the...
Yeah, I mean, we have like the televator and stuff.
Oh, we have the televator.
Yeah.
Obvious. Yeah.
So the televator is kind of like the only fast travel system we have in the game at the moment. When it comes to fast travel in the overworld, there's a kind of a reason why we don't have it at the moment. Like, firstly, the world's not that big yet, so, you know, traveling is not such a huge deal. But also, we don't want to feel like fast travel is a bit of an easy solution, I guess, to the navigation problem that you might have in the world. And we want a more interesting way of solving that problem beyond fast travel. So that's kind of where the idea of mounts and, you know, maybe potions that help you, that increase your move speed, you know, mounts that can travel different kinds of terrain. That's where we can really build up some interesting content for everyone to experience, as opposed to us having a fast travel system and then really your gameplay just gets boiled back down to you traveling by foot through these areas, you know, and fighting enemies like you're currently aware of. Essentially, in a way, every new sense of locomotion or movement system that we provide offers you like a new, I guess, dimension of the experience.
Yeah, it's a unique experience. So some of the, I guess we can kind of squish, like categorize these into like internal movements and external movements, or like there's kind of categories. I guess internal movements, there's stuff, how can you actually move yourself, and right now there's just movement, but like walking, but people know that climbing is something that we've already got in the works in the supporter branch. So climbing is going to, you don't need tools for climbing. It's like walking, except it's vertical, basically. And then in the future, we've talked about the fact that one day we might have, or we want to have stuff like swimming, whether that be surface swimming or diving underwater into finding underwater caverns, or picking up rocks and fossils off the bottom of the riverbed or whatever. So they're your kind of movement options, and they'll probably be the three. I don't think we'll necessarily have any more internal movement options. From that point on, you'll probably need something else to facilitate your movement, whether that be a mount or some sort of wagon or like I could
like a carriage or and you know, different versions for different types of terrain. Another form is, you know, equipment can be used to supplement a lot of these things, which adds to the things you might want to craft and have on you. Like, you know, like maybe you can climb certain things with just your hands, but if you've got climbing picks, you can climb further. Before things impact you, you might be more secure climbing with picks on certain surfaces. And adding all these dimensions to the game really lets us, I guess, just explore things, and you can make some awesome stuff, some awesome customized things. It adds to your build concepts, so it's something we're more and more interested in as the game goes on. Can
empty flasks suddenly have a use? Because you drink them underwater to get more oxygen, but then they fill up with water, so then you can't use them anymore. That would be cool.
That'd be cool, actually. Yeah, as long as you hold it upside down.
You hold it upside down and you go, and it fills with water.
You get one breath's worth. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's and that kind of explains why we don't have fast travel, and we'd like to try and avoid having fast travel as much as possible.
And there's also
Yeah.
there's also options for like predefined paths. In our initial prototypes of a Township Tale, we had minecarts, and most of them were just static at the entrance to a mine on a minecart track, and you couldn't do anything with them. But we used to jump in them and pretend like, oh, roller coaster down there. In fact, our initial design of the game that we were making before the game evolved into Township Tale was actually meant to be more of a cooperative puzzle experience where I think you were going down a minecart track and you had to jump out and sort of solve physics puzzles or something to make sure the minecart track would keep going or something like that. I can't really remember, but
I still remember the total game design for it. But yeah, it's pretty much that.
Wow. I can barely remember what happened.
I still want to make that game one day.
But the short is like there could be things where most locomotion we've mentioned, like swimming, climbing, walking, even mounts, are fairly freeform in terms of where you can go. But if there are things like minecart tracks in the future, you're not really dictating whether you're going. You're just hopping on this cart and pulling a lever or something to let it roll, and then you're following. It's a literally on rails sort of movement. And there'll be more things like that as well, I imagine, if we have moving platforms or whatever, where hopping on this platform, I don't know how this moving platform works. It would obviously depend on the context and design and purpose of that, but you're hopping on this platform. But that gives us the ability as developers to really give you a unique controlled experience, where if this is a platform that takes 1 minute, say, to get to its destination, and you can't jump off it, otherwise you're going to fall into a pit or off a cliff or whatever. But then there's enemies shooting at you or something like that. Then you've kind of got this. You have to survive this journey, dodging projectiles or killing things off in the distance, or dodging rocks that fall down from above you or whatever, which would be pretty cool. It's not fast travel. If anything, it's slow travel, but it's an example of using different types of movement to sort of change up the game experience.
And a portion as to why you might use some of these different navigation methods is because storage of items and things like that is going to start to be more restricted as the game's content grows. We've talked to people before about concepts of weight based on inventory and things like that. Right now, obviously, we know that people are really interested in holding lots of items of different kinds, and it makes sense because we don't, have like an infinite inventory space that you can hold things. But as specialization and things like that start to kick in even harder than they currently do, the kind of backpack that you're willing to carry for this particular journey, the resources that you're bringing back, you're going to need different means of returning those. So things like mounts, for example, will be able to carry, heavier resources, but maybe they'll move slower as well, and things like that.
There will also be aspects where, as we add more items to the game, like right now, if you, as a player, have the goal of having one of every item in the game in your bag, you obviously can't do that. There's not enough space. But you can store, let's say you can store 20% of the items in the game in your inventory. In terms of you can have ingots and you can have wood and you can have some food and you can have some a spare handle, and you can go through and kind of go, I can store some of kind of every type of resource. But as the game expands, we're going to have more and more types of resources. And your inventory is not going to necessarily grow. And so there's going to be more. Obviously, you can choose to just keep the same stuff on you and not store any of the new stuff. But sometimes you're going to have to make decisions where you go, okay, well, there's this new type of item in the game. And say like we just added those Tarabata no, not Terrabota, Gotera spores, the ones that stun things. If you decided you wanted to start carrying those around, you had to choose what in my inventory am I no longer carrying around to start carrying that. And so, do you think, Boramy, there'll ever be a time where I can somehow send resources without needing to take it in person? Like, will I be able to maybe train a mount or have a minecart that I can maybe load resources into? Or do I always need to, like, get Timo to run back and forth from town for me? Or
I mean, it's an interesting question, because in some aspects the journey back is will be a core part of the experience for some items.
Yeah.
So that sort of convenience mechanic, I think generally they come in at a later time during development, just once like the flow of things is established, to make sure that we're not kind of shortcutting something that could provide value in where we can provide value in other experiences.
Yeah. We definitely we don't want players to never return to the town because they can just ship their resources in.
Yeah, like it might be that maybe you can get like a small, like, pet or creature or something like that can run things back but can't bring anything in, and the things it can bring back are very limited in terms of like the in terms of the weight scaling, I guess, part of it.
But I guess that's where a storage mount might come in, where I do my wood cutting and I load it up onto my mount, and then I do more wood cutting and I do short trips. I'm not doing a trip all the way from the forest back to town. I'm doing just from the forest to my mount, back and forth, stocking up my mount or wagon or whatever. And then once I've stored that up entirely, that's when I do that long trip from the forest with my mount back to town. Yeah. So it's not me suffering the entire size of my.
There's an image of, like, or I guess a portion of the vision that we have for the game where, when you watch like these fantasy medieval movies or series or books or anime or whatever, and you have the characters kind of traveling on this chariot, having this pleasant like idle chat whilst traveling through the forest. We want that to be a part of the Township Tale experience, where you're having this pleasant stroll, I guess, carrying your wares and your loot. And maybe bandits attack you, maybe, you encounter something along the way and then you react to that. And then you come back to the inn, you show off your goods and you be like, oh, you're lucky we brought that back. We got ganged up by some bandits, but we were able to fend them off thanks to the mercenaries we recruited from town.
It sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons sort of experience. Yeah. It's really like classic sort of, yeah. So my Dungeons and Dragons group, on a wagon, got attacked by bears. Emma died. That's my wife. She died straight away. So that was the end of Emma. Anyway, cool story.
Nice.
Like it's definitely. Yeah, it's those sorts of things that create stories. And if at the end of the day you find yourself just cutting down wood and shipping it off to town and cutting down wood and shipping it off to town, the opportunities for those stories to arise have kind of been removed from the situation.
Yeah.
And also the chances of another player stumbling upon you are lower because your space, you're sticking around here and they're sticking around there.
Yeah.
But if there are ways that we can incentivize you to travel, even if it's less often, but as long as it still happens, then there's the opportunities for your paths to cross and for more interesting stories to take place.
You could hitchhike around the township world, and pick up stray people, and it's like so many stories waiting to be told. All right. It
also creates a bit of a role for maybe someone to actually be a merchant or a distributing person, a delivery person,
like a courier.
A courier. There we go. That's the word. Yeah, where I could come out to Boramy's house and go, look, I've got a not a truck, but like a wagon full of space. If you want to offload stuff, and maybe I'll buy it from him, or maybe I'll take it to town and sell it. and then give him the profits or
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, I can have the Bridge 3 Trading Company can make its return. All right, so
Yes,
yeah, that's
sure.
I think that's a solid amount for us to talk about for the navigation stuff. If you've got more questions about it, feel free to hit us up in the Q&A below. And if you've got interesting ideas for how these kinds of stories can develop on your way traveling through the world, feel free to let us know. And we're this is like those kinds of moments are something that is one of the things I look forward to the most in the game. So I love to hear people's thoughts about that.
Okay, Q&A.
All right, time for Q&A. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back in just a second for you guys. All right, hello and welcome to the Q&A for Altacast numéro 12. What are you doing?
It's my smiley face on my mug. Look at it. It's such a happy mug.
So,
is that a takeaway cup you have there?
It is.
Why are you going outside?
Because I will blow my brains out if I don't.
Okay. This is in case I forget whose mug it is.
Oh yeah, or if you forget your name.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I forget that my name
That's the first place I look when I need to remember something. I look at my mug. Okay, questions.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so question number 1. Oh, I started editing a question and now that's not how you do that. Okay. Will there ever be a way to transfer items from one server to another? Probably not. It's the sort of thing that might be supported via some form of modding or third-party support. As in, if I host 2 servers, if I have 2 servers that I own, and one of them is I don't know, for whatever reason, one of them is like a hardcore PvP and the other's co-op, but I still want the items to be able to transfer back and forth. Maybe I could use some sort of third-party tool that syncs that or something. In terms of us officially supporting it, probably not anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, there like with the discussion of player caps, we were aware that this was going to be a point of concern for some people. And so if it's going to go in any way, there's probably going to be a bit of like a it's going to be a pretty meta thing that you might see in on like a launcher level or something like that.
Yeah, if we do put in player caps, we might put in tools to help people migrate to other servers, but it is definitely more of a one-off thing. It's more because right now we're in a really unique situation where we've got public servers and then we've got community servers. Whereas if we blend, and we're already taking steps to try and blur that gap, there might be a bit of resistance to try and help people move away from the public servers to the other servers. So it could make sense if we put in tools, but it's difficult because we don't want server owners just grabbing your save, but we also don't want you to be able to just move your save to someone's server without their permission. Because what if they want to not have someone transfer an account with 10,000 value? So
there'll probably be like some kind of agreement concept to this whole thing, so that, because obviously right now if you wanted to copy your character, you could tell a server owner what you've got, and then they'll just kind of spawn it in for you and give you like levels and stuff like that. So it's not like it's impossible to currently do, but it's you'll hear us talk more about this like once we know that we're going to move towards a player cap. We're going to be revisiting this discussion to let you know exactly what kind of system is going to be in place to help people who have their characters. I mean, another thing is we've been talking more and more that it's very, 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 very likely that when the Forest update comes out, that we're going to be wiping the public servers completely. So yeah, there's aspects to kind of weigh as to whether that might be the time that you want to move to another server. And yeah, so Yeah, there's
it's worth noting
lots of moving parts.
there already are servers that do migrations for you, like that. That will you'll show them your inventory and they'll spawn that in for you on their server. So there are servers that already do this sort of thing. So if you really are attached to your inventory but are looking to join a private server, maybe look out for one of those servers so that you can have your stuff transferred.
Okay.
Cool. That was a long answer. Will there be any formal introduction of the two newest members of Alta?
I mean, we haven't had the most formal introduction will probably be in an Altacast, I would say, because I guess you get to see them. They're obviously, new to the team, so their comfort levels with being put on camera and stuff like that, I haven't actually discussed with them yet at all, if they're okay with that. But we want them to just be more comfortable working on the game and being a part of the community. And that's something that's self-paced, like Joel and I are obviously very active on the Discord, but, like Victor and Timo and Serena don't speak as much as we do. And that's like the Discord presence is not something that we enforce on anyone because it's a very public.
It can be very stressful.
Yeah,
it can be very, very stressful.
So, it'll be something that, a formal introduction in an Altacast of Jana and Sebastian will happen once they feel comfortable with everything.
Yeah. How did you decide on the name Alta?
We had two names that we were considering for the company. Actually, we had one name. We between me, Tima, and Joel, we came up with one name. And
Tima didn't like it. It was like,
yeah.
It was kind of we were bouncing ideas off each other, and we had kind of suggested something, but the problem was the balance we were trying to get was we didn't want it to sound super game studio-ish. Like if you think of a lot of game studios, they have these quite
it's like
bubbly,
like kind of like Level Up Studios or like 66-bit pixel studios or some stuff like that.
Yeah, fluffy kitten developers or something. I don't know. But the point is, like, they have all these sort of fun names, and they end up with really cute logos and stuff, which fluffy kitten developers could have like a little kangaroo,
a dog.
But the problem is we kind of wanted to develop our company a bit more like a startup. Like we wanted to talk to investors, and we kind of thought maybe if we take that route of having a name that's more bubbly, it'll be harder to have people take us seriously and take the tech that we're working on seriously. So we were trying to find a less bubbly but still kind of catchy name.
Yeah.
And I wanted. Can I say what we were gonna call it? Are we?
I mean, also,
no?
I mean, there's the idea that you had for a studio name, and then there's the one that I came up with that was like the contender against Alta.
So I said, "Oh no, I'm not gonna say my."
Oh, okay. You're not gonna say yours.
I'm not gonna say that one. I was gonna. At some stage, we were talking about the liquid one.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was one before the liquid one, which was the solid one.
Oh yes.
Okay. So basically, we wanted to.
But
call
don't say the portal one. Don't say the portal.
No, I'm not gonna say that one.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Joel's very attached to that idea. Originally,
I will buy that train one.
The idea that I had for the name, because we had like a list that we tried to come up with, and the list ended up having two names on it. I added the name Solid Oak Studios to it because I just like
all oak.
Because I just like the way it sounds, like Solid Oak. It rolls off the tongue super well. But that was taken by like a carpentry company, I think. Which makes a lot of sense. And I was thinking like, if it's not solid, it's liquid, right? Because
But then there's the milk company that
And then liquid oak
milk.
sounds like milk.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We didn't. So then the contender was Liquid Oak Studios and Alta, and Alta was something that Timo's wife came up with.
Yeah.
And
I was like, that's flipping boring.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's a very safe option, and it starts with an A, so it's going to show up at the top of alphabetically sorted things for the most part.
But now we've got to compete with Alpine.
Yeah. So Alta, I think, means it means something.
There's a musical artist called Alta now. I think that's new. I don't think they existed when we are Alta. Australian Legal Technology Association. There's a place in Norway called Alta.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I feel like it means summit or something like that.
There's Fitbit Alta as
Okay,
well
whatever.
now.
I mean, so Alta was like an ambiguous name. We could have made it anything. So we went with it.
But it's just kind of, it doesn't tie us down into anything if we needed to shift our sort of market focus. It's not like we called ourselves the Township Tale Studios, and if Township Tale kind of flopped and we needed to pivot a bit, we're not stuck as a Township Tale Studios. Or it's a flexible name that can kind of scale with us. It's like Google didn't name themselves the search engine company because they're much more than that now. But yeah, so whatever.
Yeah.
I liked our logo. When I saw the logo, that's when I was sold on Alta. So
I like the logo as well.
Yeah, Boramy made it, so it's just okay. Altarian vocab. Just clarifying, Alta and Township. Altarian is not the language of a Township Tale, but
No.
This person has called it that. Altarian vocab. Could you please give supporters one word per week? Could we, Boramy? Could we give out? I've seen some translation pages, but I'm not sure how many words have been.
There's not a huge amount of words that have been built in that language yet. No, not yet. I can't. Like maybe I'm not completely closed off to it, but the timing is not right at the moment.
Okay, there we go. Will there be more food options in the forest? Any you can tell us?
There's gonna be more meat. There's gonna be more plant-based food, I guess. Probably some new mushrooms. Maybe we'll see.
Oh,
yeah. The main thing that comes with with introducing new food is we need to kind of have interesting effects for when you're using them in cooking stews and things like that. So
why would I eat meat number 2 when I can eat Spriggle drumsticks?
Yeah,
so.
Like if you can eat babu meat, for example, why would I eat that if I can eat 3 Spriggle legs? And it's the same sort of thing.
They call it boost stew.
Yeah. So there's Joel and I have some things planned for that in that vein of things, because how to reward players for things is something we're always thinking about, and underneath it all, what it really is asking for us is to have some more nuance to a lot of the systems in the game.
More metal types or colors like black iron. This is a bit of a. It's a question with the answer, like a fair bit. The short of it is, right now, new metal types can't change gameplay enough to warrant adding them. Like it would be nice if we could have like a cool dark black weapon or whatever. But at that point, it is just aesthetic. We really do want more stats and more sort of systems that we can tie these things into. And once we have those systems, once we have those stats, that's when you're going to start seeing us put in something like a darker black iron or whatever. Do you see the next question, Boramy?
The one below it? or the one above it?
Yes, the next one, the one below it.
I think they're ordered differently for you and I.
I think maybe they are then. The sword one. Are we? Is that something we can?
No.
Well, we're gonna skip that question.
Yeah. Sorry, sir. Like you probably know if you ask that question, but you can message us privately about that one.
Yeah.
If you really want to know.
I'm gonna delete it so that not everyone now goes to this Q&A to see what the question was. Yeah. It was more of a business focused question rather than game focused question. What's your opinion about ATT's think tank group? I think it's cool for us to see. So a bit of context. Basically, some people are trying to congregate together to, I guess, filter and curate their own ideas before presenting them to us, to try and improve the quality and depth of the suggestions. So instead of just saying, hey, what if there was a new metal type, say, they're going, let's actually talk about that, and they're thinking about it together and discussing it and trying to suggest more fully formed ideas. There's pros and cons of this. I'll go through the cons first. I guess the con first is if I say to Boramy, hey, I would love a dark metal, Boramy's going to hear that and go, oh, okay, a dark metal, Joel wants a dark metal, and he'll keep that in the back of his mind, because dark metal, there's nothing about that he can really say, I don't like that about it, because it's such a vague concept that I'm not saying this dark metal needs to steal people's souls or this dark metal needs to contain every element in the universe. Like, I'm just saying dark metal, so he can apply that in whatever way he wants. And on the flip side, if I give him a full formed idea of I want a dark metal that can only be forged in the depths of blah blah blah, and it must have 7 Shmichis sacrificed in the making of it, and then it contains every element in the universe, and if I hold it up above my head for 17 minutes straight, it summons a lightning bolt. Chances are half the things I've just said, Boramy's going to be like, no, stop talking. And it can put him off the idea in general, and so it can actually be a barrier to communication sometimes. On the bright side, that fully fledged idea, it's unlikely that he will take that idea in its entirety, but maybe there's stuff in there where he's like, oh, sacrificing Shmichis to make a blade. Maybe that's it. Maybe got nothing to, I'm going to scrap everything else about what you said, but maybe there's little bits in that idea that he might take away. But I think it's nice that ideas can be curated, and there's a way that we can, and the idea of the feedback forum with voting was to try and naturally do that, because it is a lot of effort for us to read hundreds and hundreds of ideas, but if popular ideas make their way to the top, then that's good. And hopefully by think tanking and curating ideas means that if that idea does go on the feedback forum, it will hopefully hit the top faster, because not only do you have a group of people who can all upvote it straight away, but it's a better form idea that other people will upvote, and therefore it's more likely to reach our attention in the first place. But do you have any other thoughts for him?
No, I mean that's pretty thorough. I think you covered most of it.
Nice.
Yeah, like the little bits of the mechanics and features that describe are the things that can catch our attention the most, because overly characterized stuff, like we're not really then our head's not in the right space in terms of like gameplay design. It's more of like character and world building, and anything that bleeds too much on the world building side is it's harder for us to kind of digest, because we have this kind of internal vision already there for that.
Speaking of, what's your end goal for the game? What is your vision for a finished Township Tale? Okay, so is this the 3-hour Altacast?
No, we should have started this question in 2016. Is what we should have done. So yeah, like I mean, I'm trying to think of like a of a way that of like a metaphor or something to use to describe this.
Where the point is, where a Township Tale is in pre-alpha. The reason it's in pre-alpha is because we're focusing on basically tech at this stage. We don't, as we said, like we haven't released climbing or swimming yet. Actually, I'm not sure if we said this on the Altacast, but Boramy and I were talking beforehand, and I was saying I think swimming's very far away, but Boramy was saying he thinks swimming is closer on the roadmap than where I've been picturing it, because it is something that unlocks. It's like a gateway to much more, and we really want to unlock those gateways earlier in development.
Yeah.
But the point is, we've got such a large vision for this game. We're talking bosses and dungeons. We're talking about areas of the map that you might never even reach in a year of playing. Like so many hidden locations and lots of professions, lots of different ways to core benefits of. If you play on a server with just 5 people, the person who generally is in charge of food might choose to be a baker, but then they choose to start dabbling in roasting when you really start coming across a challenge where roasted food sort of, like so many different aspects that you've played this game now for ages and you haven't even touched fishing, or you haven't even realized that if you dive into the lake and then chuck a left, there's a tunnel under there that heads to this whole underwater cavern area, and then you're like, what the hell? I've never even known this, and it's always been like 5 minutes away from town. So there's that. From a world perspective, there's so much. From a gameplay perspective, there's so much, like professions, bosses, dungeons. I already said. But we're also just
we're like we've talked a bit about like some concepts of like town invasion, house building, lots of different procedural environments, kind of like ranging from things like the caves all the way up to the forest and across to procedural dungeons. There's a whole aspect of like endgame style gameplay mechanics that are similar to RPGs you might be familiar with, like kind of like the endgame of an MMO or of Diablo, where you're kind of going through like these mutations of like a dungeon, for example. Like you might have thought this might be the first boss that's in the game, but here in this like challenge tower,
it's like
you can input some modifiers to fight this much stronger enemy. And
I think
there'll be rewards for it.
There'll be aspects of larger scale quests. I think to start off with, players will have quite linear goals where you go, okay, I just want to get good gear, or I just want to unlock the ability to start interacting with this part of the world or whatever. Like I want to repair the sandstone bridge, or I want to say you can't hold your breath much and therefore you can't reach these underwater dungeons. So you might set yourself the goal of just upping your breath, however that's done, so that you can start reaching this new part of the world. But then, and later game, it's going to be stuff like, I need to take out this boss and take out this boss at the same time so that this part of the world is affected in such a way that I can now do this. And it's such a larger scale focus. Like early game, the idea of killing a boss is crazy. Mid game, you can kill the boss, but the idea of like taking on both bosses one after the other or whatever is like crazy talk. So there's things like that where if you look at games like Terraria, by the end of it, you're summoning bosses and you're fighting that giant wall monster boss thing, and then the whole game changes. It becomes like super hard mode or whatever. So we might see some things like that where parts of the world drastically actually change over the experience of, and that's more of a group server experience than a personal experience as well.
So like it's Township Tale is essentially going to be this fully filled world where we're kind of going to be throwing lots of new challenges and mutations of the experience that you've got so far, and I guess it's just something that you sit there and you let us do that to you.
I personally, I think a big part of it is the diversity of the experience, where at this stage, we talk about this a lot, and you could argue at this stage it's not necessarily the case, but we really want different servers to have different economies and different challenges and different experiences. So right now, the spawn rates in the caves are generally the same across servers, but you might already find that on some servers you come across crystals a lot easier. So Televator is unlocked for that server a bit earlier than on other servers. But once we really flesh out the world, these sorts of aspects, especially even in the forest, I was noticing the other day, some forests had heaps of particular biomes, whereas others had very little of that biome. And those sorts of things will really start fueling different experiences, where some servers might have challenges within the forest or within the world anywhere that other servers might not even have in them. And so you could play to, I'm not sure if we'll ever have a completed world or whether the world will keep evolving and changing. But if you ever reach a point where you're like, I kind of want to experience this from scratch, like back in the rusty pick, starting off the game experience, and you start a new server, join a new server, or create a new server for your friends, the experience that evolves into will be completely different. Hopefully because you're trying out a different profession or whatever, but also because the world itself presents you with completely different challenges. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any... Okay, sorry, this question confused me a little bit at first. Are there ever ideas in the forum that we want to delete, not because they're bad, but because they're so good that we want to kind of delete it and slip it in so that it's more of a surprise rather than everyone upvoting it and seeing the idea before it comes to fruition?
Well, I mean, we're not going to delete them because if you
don't want to take credit
if you notice it got deleted, if you notice that we deleted it, then you'll know that what we're thinking about this idea. Especially if there's nothing wrong with the way you presented it. If it's a perfectly sound, amazing argument about this feature, and then we delete it, you kind of like, I mean, I guess now we definitely can't delete it. Maybe
be like, why'd you delete my idea? And be like, don't really have a reason. We didn't like your spelling.
But there's definitely a lot of overlap, I think, between some of the things we have in mind for the game and what we've seen appear on the feedback forum. And a lot of the times, I think, if we do comment on that, we'll probably give vague, ambiguous replies because we still want to keep a bit of the mystique.
Our way of doing the equivalent of this is just by not jumping on ideas and saying this is the best idea ever. Instead, we kind of leave it ambiguous in general as to whether this is an idea that we're going to employ or not. And that way, yes, your idea got a lot of votes, but people will never quite know whether it's something that'll make it to the game or not.
Also, that makes sure that in case something happens and we can't do that we didn't make any promises.
We didn't get people's hopes up. Yeah. And then crush them. Do you have any intention of making crystal worms drop crystal when they die?
Possibly. I think it's a fair enough request. And it does give crystal worms a bit of a slightly more interesting drop than what they can currently do. So, maybe you'll see that happen soon.
Do you have plans to add? Oh, this is similar to what we talked about today. Basically, a teleporting system across the map akin to the Televator. Yeah. Probably not like the Televator, as we talked about, forms like mounts or whatever will speed that up. I do think it would be cool if there were mystical movement styles around the world, like maybe a portal that can randomly spawn in places and you're kind of like, oh, where the hell does this portal go to? And you go through it and you come out somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it's not like a permanent portal that...
Or if there's like an in-between realm in some respect for traveling between 2 points. And it's kind of like
8 times faster. You every one block you travel in this other realm is like 8 blocks away. Blocks what?
But there's a completely different challenge trying to get through this part. So you have to.
Yeah.
That's the choice you're making. It's whether or not you want to deal with that. Yeah.
I was chatting the other day. I think I can't remember who suggested it, but tunnels in the forest where I think it was my brother actually. Tunnels in the forest where you enter it and it might take you somewhere else, but the distance might not be reflective of how far you've traveled. So you get this real like spatial confusion where.
What do you call that again? Like
non-Euclidean space.
Yeah, non-Euclidean spaces.
Yeah. So you might come in, you might enter it heading north, and you might come out heading
east,
south, or east, so you've been turned around and you're like, wait a second, look at the sun, where am I? And like you find out that in your 2 seconds of travel, you've actually come out in a totally like those sorts of things.
It's 50 days later.
and you start going, crap, I'm super hungry in real life. Yeah. Is the game ever going to get ambient music?
I'm not sure about ambient music, because ambient music in a multiplayer game is a bit distracting. But we are interested in having like record players and things like that, and maybe you can get a portable one, like a little.
Yeah, and there's ways we can make ambient. I think there's ways we can score our ambience so that it's less. Like if you have a minute long ambience loop, or let's say 20-second long ambience loop, the thing that makes that annoying is the fact that it's super repetitive. And the thing that makes music in games often really good is the fact that it means you're not listening to the same 20-second loop. Instead, you're listening to a 3-minute piece.
Yeah.
And there's ways we could do that with ambience as well, where we have a 3-minute ambience piece, so that it still adds to the variety that your ears get, but without explicitly playing Beethoven while you slay monsters.
Yeah. So, you might have very, very calm ambient like music that's not diegetic to the world.
Live Q&A when? I'm not sure if, like, obviously we'll be reevaluating the way we do everything, just like we constantly do reevaluations. Should we release more videos? Should we blah, blah, blah. Like, we reevaluate things. Right now there's no plan to do a live Q&A because with our current setup, it doesn't really work. I mean, personally, I wouldn't be against it. I just don't think the extra effort is necessarily worth the payoff. And given the fact that our videos are already 1 hour long, I feel like a live Q&A would.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be just a Q&A when we do it. And it's, I guess, like, if there's a point where we stop doing these, like this format of Q&A, and then like a good amount of varied questions and interests about people builds up.
You're getting visitors. Yeah, I imagine even if we did slip it in between Altacast, then maybe we wouldn't have a Q&A form, or we would, and we'd go through those questions first and then take live questions or something. Yeah. But if it happens, we'll let you know. But there's no plans currently.
Yep. Okay, we're about to run out of time, so we'll answer a couple more.
Well, yeah, we'll try and skim through them. Some questions about things being fixed or tweaked or nerfed or buffed. These things will come with time. Stuff like the night vision stew being fixed for Forest launch. I will hope to think that it is fixed by Forest launch. These sorts of things, sometimes, obviously, when you're in the moment, it can be frustrating that they don't work. But for us, it's just balancing our team. We don't have a huge team, so. But yes, hopefully, I would hope that some of these tweaks will be made.
Okay, there's 2 questions I want to answer real quick.
Yeah.
One of them is, will there be any overlap between cooks and alchemists when it comes to supplies and ingredients? Yes, there will be some overlap in the resources, but they will be used differently for different effects. If you want to, like some of the distilling concepts that we talked about in one of the Altacasts, that was about alchemy with me and Joel, you can see how that might affect where, potatoes aren't used for eating with their meat, they're used for some of their chemical compounds.
But potatoes are used for alchemy, so.
Yeah. And the other question is, where in the roadmap do you have book writing / personal journals? Book writing, we're not sure about, but personal journals, I would personally like to see probably sometime after the forest goes out. It's probably one of the things I'd like us to move towards. Particularly just because there's lots of information that we can already start displaying on journals, but also some things and ideas that we have for what that's going to evolve into that will lead nicely into what might come next. Yeah. Any one question you want to answer?
I got two questions. One is, will we add saturation to hunger stews that halt or stop hunger decrease? There's quite a chance we will be making changes to hunger. As we mentioned earlier, as we add different foods, we want those foods to have different benefits. Like, why am I eating this versus this? And we do want players to be able to sort of pick their favorite. There's no best food, but I carry this one because it lets me carry a smaller stack of things so that I have more inventory space at the end of my travels. But Boramy likes to carry blueberries, for instance, because he can just snack on them without ever having to stop and cook a meal or something. I don't know. And the other one is, are we ever going to have... oh, crap. Bloody hell. Are we ever going to have more elite versions of monsters like the crystal worms that add to its moveset or make you fight it in a different way? I think we will at some stage basically readdress our enemy situation, find ways that we can spice them up a little bit. Obviously, adding more enemies is our current priority because it's cool to see new creatures in a game, but I'm sure you guys would rather see new unique creatures at this stage rather than just another version of the worm. But we definitely will be going back at some stage and going, how can we sort of multiply on our existing content to create new unique challenges and experiences with those creatures.
Okay,
that's it.
Thanks a lot for watching the Altacast. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any more questions, feel free to hit them in the next Q&A coming out, the next Q&A list below. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the game and look forward to some of the updates as we continue to chug along towards the forest update. Peace.
Bye.